Let's fill out over here. Okay, good morning. You ready to start here? All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Deepinder Mayal. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Minnesota. Today we have with us, behind me here, Teresa Nelson, Alicia Grancy, and Catherine Allen Halverson from the ACLU of Minnesota, as well as four lawyers from Green Espel, including Kshitij Srinath, Amran Farah, Kevin Zal, and Michelle Morrow. We, just off the bat here, right off the top, I want to say that we know and we're aware that we saw another DHS-related shooting last night here in Minnesota, and we are waiting to hear more information. As always, we're asking for a transparent investigation to ensure that we can fully understand the facts and to ensure accountability. And putting that aside, I do want to acknowledge here that we know that this is not a normal time and that what we're seeing here in Minnesota is not normal law enforcement activity. Since November, we have witnessed increasing escalation of unconstitutional activity throughout the state. And everyone is seeing it. It is not a mystery. People around the world are seeing this. And this should be understood as part of a broader pattern, one that has been well documented in court after court across this country. Remember, this affects us all. These are all of our rights that are at stake. The rights to be free of unlawful search and seizure, and to be free from warrantless arrests and racial profiling are some of the most essential and critical rights we have. And Democrats and Republicans alike should be alarmed by what is happening in Minnesota to these fundamental rights. In the end, people want to be able to live safely in their neighborhoods without fear from government retaliation, and one where the federal police are not turned against our communities. This morning, the ACLU of Minnesota, and pro bono partners Covington and Burling, Green Espel, and Robbins Kaplan filed a class action lawsuit, a lawsuit against the federal government brought on behalf of Minnesotans. Catherine Allen Halverson from the ACLU of Minnesota will go into more details about some of their stories, but their names are Mubashir Khalif Hussain, Mohammed E. Daras, and Javier Doe. Mubashir was going to speak with us today, but unfortunately cannot make it, and you'll find his statement in some of the press packets. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Catherine Allen Halverson. I am a staff attorney at the ACLU of Minnesota, and I use she, her pronouns. As Deepinder said, this morning, the ACLU of Minnesota, the ACLU, our pro bono co-counsel Green Espel, Covington and Burling, and the Robbins Kaplan firm filed a lawsuit in the Federal District Court of Minnesota on behalf of 3 Minnesotans and those similarly situated who were unlawfully stopped and detained by federal agents working for the Department of Homeland Security. In the complaint, we detail disturbing facts regarding the ongoing assault against the rights of people in Minnesota who federal agents perceive to be Somali or Latino. Our client, Mubashir Hussain, a U.S. citizen, walked outside on his lunch break in December and was violently stopped, pinned down in a headlock, arrested, driven around, and held at the Whipple building by masked ICE agents who refused to look at his U.S. passport card until they had him in detention. Mr. Hussain sees and hears federal agents in his neighborhood every day. And just last week, while bravely recording them in his neighborhood from a public sidewalk, he was pepper sprayed directly in the face by federal agents driving by. Also in December, our client, Mohammed Idris, a U.S. citizen, worked an overnight shift as a personal care assistant. He met his mother outside, and they started shoveling out his car because it had snowed overnight. Masked federal agents surrounded them and detained them for a lengthy period, separating them from each other and questioning their valid identification. In January, our client, Javier Doe, a U.S. citizen, was at work when Customs and Border Control agents harassed, violently tackled, handcuffed, with great force arrested him, and then they drove him around in their car, finally leaving him in a Walmart parking lot, sobbing on the ground after looking at his passport in the car. The complaint details the experiences of many more brave Minnesotans who have spoken up, even as the administration's rhetoric and the extreme and excessive force and lawlessness of their agents has escalated. ICE, CBP, and other federal agents are violating the most basic limits our Constitution places on law enforcement. When acting without a warrant, they must have reasonable suspicion before stopping someone, and they must have probable cause before detaining or arresting them. They are also violating these most basic limits that were placed by Congress specifically on federal immigration enforcement agents conducting enforcement activity. ICE, CBP, and other federal agents are doing all this by targeting people for stops and arrests based on their perceived ethnicity as Somali or Latino. In fact, the Trump administration has been crystal clear about their intention to target Somali and Latino people. Specifically surrounding Operation Metro Surge, the president has repeatedly denigrated Somali people and said they should go back where they came from. He has repeatedly suggested that they are picking up Somali and Latino criminals, when in reality they are harassing, stopping, and detaining hard-working Minnesotans in their neighborhoods, outside their workplaces, their houses of worship, their schools, their community centers, and their homes. And because they are targeting Minnesotans based on their perceived ethnicity as Somali and Latino, agents are unlawfully using their enforcement authority against many more people of color and Native American people in Minnesota. The illegal enforcement activity is only increasing. We thus anticipate asking the federal district court for an emergency order to stop ICE, CBP, and other federal agents from continuing to violate Minnesotans' rights. In addition to that motion for a preliminary injunction, we will be filing a motion to certify a class of Minnesotans who are being stopped and arrested based on these unlawful policies. Look, thousands of masked federal agents with militarized gear and weapons are terrorizing our city and our state. People should not fear going to work, to school, to the grocery store, to the hospital, to their house of worship, or anywhere in our wonderful state. The only way to stop this is for people to stand up for their rights, and it is difficult to do because the administration's threats of unlawful detention and even removal are coming every day. Our clients are bravely coming forward and asking the court to do something about this as soon as possible. Thank you. We'll take any questions you have.
Can you talk about how you expect this case to interact with another one that's playing out, waiting for the judge's order, and with the state's case against DHS?
Sure. The Tincher case was brought on behalf of constitutional observers and protesters asserting their First Amendment and Fourth Amendment rights. And we had a preliminary injunction hearing this week and hope the judge will issue an injunction that stops the unlawful activity of ICE against observers and protesters. This lawsuit is focused on ICE immigration enforcement activity against the Somali and Latino community and people they perceive to be Somali and Latino. So while their and in this lawsuit, we seek to protect and assert their Fourth Amendment rights and their to not be stopped unlawfully and arrested unlawfully. The Attorney General's filed a lawsuit along with the City of Minneapolis and St. Paul, and that asserts some similar claims on behalf of Minnesotans, and we will expect that the courts will proceed with each case appropriately. Yeah.
How do you see an injunction potentially playing out if granted?
Well, we would ask the court to give specific direction to the agents that are on the ground here in Minnesota to follow the law in making stops and arrests. And we will hope that the court will proceed quickly in offering relief because of how dire the situation is on the ground.
Are you seeking damages for the three individuals or no?
At this time, the lawsuit seeks injunctive relief only.
There was some understanding coming out of the summer that there was more latitude given to stops and detainment through the Supreme Court, the so-called Kavanaugh stops. I understand there was some pushback in a decision that was made later last year. Can you take me through where you understand that requirement is at right now according to the Supreme Court?
The so-called Kavanaugh stops come from a concurrence to a stay of an injunction that was issued in litigation against unlawful ICE and DHS activity in California. And so it's not really a decision that established new law with respect to stops and arrests. So in this case, we seek to assert the rights of Minnesotans against unlawful stops that are based not on any well-founded belief that there's an immigration violation, but instead on the perceived ethnicity of the person being stopped. I think, one thing I would note is that here we have extremely explicit threats and racial animus being described by the administration to the Somali community and the Latino community here in Minnesota. And we think that's strong evidence that there is a policy to target these communities.
Will more be added to either of these class actions? Because both of these are class actions, correct? The Tincher case as well?
Yes. That we will continue to offer evidence of the ongoing violations of people's constitutional rights as the case progresses. Yes.
Do you have any knowledge? I would think in other states there have been similar suits filed from the ACLU. How have those played out on the ground?
Yeah, I think injunctions have issued with respect to unlawful conduct, and while the conduct here in Minnesota is overlapping with much of the unlawful conduct you've seen in other states, it's I think objectively worse, more extreme, both in the manner of targeting, in the and in the force that is being used in stops and arrests.
So if you're successful with the injunction, does that change 2,000, 3,000 agents? Can they still stay here? It just changes how they would operate, or?
That's right. What we're seeking is for the court to provide oversight, an order that says this is what's lawful, and that's what you have to do. And then we would expect that there would be some opportunity for the court to seek, we will ask the court to seek reporting of the conduct that's happening on the ground. I will, yeah, that's, so.
Yeah, like, I mean, not to get too hypothetical, but if an injunction is made and they continue to act this way, would there be relief or how it goes?
Yeah, there is a mechanism to seek to enforce an injunction once one is issued. Any other questions?
How quickly do you think this will get in front of a judge then?
We will file our motions as soon as possible, and we'll hope to be, talking with a judge who's assigned next week to get a schedule to have it briefed and heard.
When will that be filed then? Today? Or-
It will be filed as soon as we can. Any other?
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have copies of the press release and bios of the declarants.